agenda is to hear statements from persons wishing to address the council.
We have none.
Hearing none, we'll move along to the consent agenda. Deliberate and act on the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on June 4, 2024. Act on the approval of bills. Deliberate and act on a resolution to adopt economic development incentive policies. Deliberate and act on a resolution accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission approving a specific use permit for a museum at 50 West Elm Street, which is located in the Central Business District. Museums are only allowed by specific use permit in the Central Business District. Deliberate and act on a resolution accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission approving a replat of a portion of Lot 5, Block H, Valley View Edition, Section 4, and a portion of a called 5.29 acre tract located in the John E. Ross Survey, abstract number 750, becoming Lot 5-R, Block H, Valley View Edition, Section 4, in the city of Hillsborough, being the same property by reference as recorded in volume 2006, page 644 of the official public records of Hill County, Texas, also known as 201 Falcon Lane. Deliberate and act on a resolution accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the final plat, Raquel's Place, Phase 2, in the city of Hillsborough on a certain tract of land being 0.25 acres, situated in the John J. Carruthers Survey, abstract number 148 in Hill County, Texas, being the same property by reference as recorded in volume 2266, page 729, also known as 105 Anderson Street. Deliberate and act on a resolution accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the final plat, Solomon Premier Estates, Phase 2, in the city of Hillsborough on a certain tract of land being 0.152 acres, situated in the J. Carruthers Survey, abstract number 148 in Hill County, Texas, being the same property by reference as recorded in volume 2218, page 539, also known as 413 John Street. And finally, deliberate and act on a resolution accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the final plat, Somerset Edition, Phase 1, in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, ETJ of the city of Hillsborough, on a certain tract of land being 33.59 acres, situated in the F.M. Wright Survey, abstract number 964 in Hill County, Texas, being a portion of the same property by reference as recorded in volume 306, page 258 of the official public records of Hill County, Texas, also known as property south of Old Bynum Road and east of Cho Street, Hill County Road 3101. Council, does anyone want to pull any of those out and discuss any further? Hearing no questions, I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Move that we approve. Second.
City Secretary.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Lloyd.
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson. Aye. Councilmember Zarate. Aye. Councilmember Jolly.
Aye.
Moving on to the regular agenda. Hear and deliberate on a presentation of the 2022-2023 fiscal year audit by Patilla Brown and Hill. And with us tonight is Todd Pruitt of Patilla Brown and Hill.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the council for giving us the opportunity to perform the audit this year. And I'd like to give special thanks to Dale Snyder and all of the rest of the staff at the city that assisted us during the course of the audit. They really did an excellent job at providing us all the information that we needed in order to do our audit. We appreciate all of their efforts. Everyone should have a copy of the city's annual financial statements for fiscal year 2023. What I'd like to do tonight is just briefly go over our independent auditor's reports that contain the results of the audit. As a refresher, we were engaged to perform what's called a single audit. In the single audit, you really have two separate parts of the audit. The first part is an audit of the financial statements that you have here in this report. And then the second part of the audit is an audit of the city's federal grant award programs. You may recall that any local government that spends over $750,000 in a single year is required to undergo the compliance audit of grant awards, and you surpassed that threshold this year. If you turn to page 1 of the annual financial report, you will find our report. Congratulate the city on the very clean results of the audit. If you're a governing body, this is really what you're looking for. You've got a clean opinion on your financial statements. There were no significant deficiencies in your internal controls or the financial reporting process that were identified. No non-compliance with laws and regulations and contracts and grants. And then on the audit of your federal grant award program, there was an unmodified opinion. We did comply with the requirements of that program, and additionally, there were no findings or question costs with respect to that program. So I congratulate the city on the clean results of the audit. If you have any questions about the audit or the financial statements, I'd be happy to answer those.
Council, any questions for Mr. Wood? No questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is to hear and deliberate on a presentation of the City of Hillsborough Water System Study performed by MRU engineers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyways, I am Armin Hunt with MRB Group. I appreciate you guys having me here tonight. Megan, thanks for inviting me. So we were tasked with doing a water system improvements plan for the city of Hillsborough, and working with Megan, Richard, and the public work team, we were able to basically get the GIS up to date on our end, create a water model, which then let us look at it in different scenarios and figure out where most of the problems may be or what needs to be improved on. So what we really focused on in this report was where the leaks were occurring or potentially occurring, and trying to figure out how to phase a plan to mitigate these issues. So that's just a summary of how this started. And then there were some developments that were occurring we were looking at. And we added a little bit to the report to indicate, how to increase capacity in specifically the PRD pressure plant, which is fed by the Hill tank, but kind of near where that Walmart is, just west of the interstate. So anyways, using the water model, we were able to collect pipe velocities, and the public works team gave us the pipe materials. So what we focused on is replacing all the cast iron and asbestos cement pipes, because those are the most prone to leaking. And when you look at that with respect to pipe velocities, that's really how you figure out where your leaks are most likely to occur. So with that, we created some maps. Kind of hard to see, but this is the existing water system that we worked with the team to update. And then here's the pressure plane map. So the PRB pressure plane that I was referring to earlier is that yellow one kind of right there in the center. The red one is the Hill tank pressure plane. Green one is the downtown pressure plane, which we're in now. And then the blue is the industrial park pressure plane. This is the pipe velocity map. I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but basically it shows the intervals of velocities throughout the system.
They're in your packet as well.
Great. I did not know you ought to pack it, but it is in there. Anyway, so then this is the pressures. And so what we did with the pressures is we looked at high tank levels and low tank levels. So you get a full range of expected pressure within the system. pressures are indicated based on 1.5 gallons per minute per customer connection. That's TCEQ's requirement on system design. So that's the low one there, and what I want to point out on this one is the east side of the downtown pressure plane does have low pressures. With the 1.5 gallons per minute is a high demand, so it may not indicate that in the field. However, it is what is required per TCEQ's design standards. And as you can see, is this the low tank? Yeah, this is the low tank level. So when you get to the low tank levels, it's even worse in the eastern portion of the downtown area. This is, so back up a little bit, we actually submitted a application to Texas Water Development Board through their EDAP program, which is a grant/loan. It's supposedly 70% loan forgiveness and 30% loan. And so we submitted it with all 4 phases indicated on this map here. And that was, I think, a total of approximately $30 million estimated cost. It's 4 residential areas, and I know some of this is not necessarily in residential, but we'll see what they say, and we can always argue that it's, supplying the residential areas. So we'll get to that if needed. And we're hoping to find out soon how much they are giving, if they're giving. I doubt they go the full $30 million, but we're hopeful. We'll see. Let's see. And so another part of the leak detection that we looked into was how do we isolate the system to figure out where most of the leakage is taking place. Obviously, we know which pipes are most likely to go into a leak, but how do we isolate it and figure out if there are certain parts of the system that are worse than others? So first step in that would be to put flow meters throughout the system in strategic areas to identify where most of the leakage is taking place. So basically what I did here is figure out where to put meters to isolate the pressure planes, and then when you use the flow meter data supplying the pressure planes versus the meter data collected, that would give you a water loss number to look at to figure out the water losses in those areas. And once you nail that down, and you get inside pressure planes, it's going to be hard to add more flow meters, so then you might do other measures of ground penetrating radar, listening for valve leakage in the field, and there's even some companies that can, I forget what they use, but they put this item in water mains and it can measure the probable leakage in the mains. So that would be a step following this if needed. This is the water main extension. There was an RFQ actually enough to do yesterday for this project. And this is extending a 10-inch water main from the Hill College pressure plane down to an existing 10-inch Interstate 35 crossing that was once active and connected directly to Aquila's 16-inch water line, but was deactivated. And so with the developments in the VRV pressure plane, it is needed to reconnect that, because right now there is only an 8-inch line supplying the west side of the low tank pressure plane and the entire VRV pressure plane. So with this addition, you could get approximately 500 more residential meters before you start seeing pressures drop below TCEQ's minimum threshold, which is 35 psi. And so with this in place, you could put in approximately 500, a little bit more meters in that pressure plane. And then for future build out, I would recommend going ahead and putting a elevated storage tank. It would be a pretty simple project because it would work with the existing pressure reducing valves in place. They would just need to operate on and off based on tank levels. And so these are just 3 potential sites that I initially looked at that would be beneficial. Obviously, you want the elevated tank in the highest location so that it doesn't cost as much to construct. So that would be the kind of the blue square at the top of this map, and then need just a small 10-inch water main extension to that. And there are 2 other options that are just in good locations that wouldn't need water main extensions, but would be a slightly higher elevation of new storage tank. And I have cost estimates provided to you guys for these projects in the report that y'all have. So that pretty much sums up what we went through and what we found and what we recommend moving forward with the water system to make improvements. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions? Thank you, appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Moving on to the next agenda item, deliberate and act on a resolution selecting an engineering firm to design water system improvements, including a new water supply line.
Mayor and council, as you know, there's kind of a donut hole area west of 35 and east of Abbott Avenue that is undeveloped, that is currently outside the city limits, although city limits go around it on all sides. We expect that much of that area is going to develop, and so as we were doing our water system improvement study, we asked MRB Group to consider the addition of residential development in that area. We know that there's some residential development imminent, and so that's informing the timing, but not the overall necessity to serve this area because it's going to develop. Accordingly, they have given us some general idea of what's going to be needed, so we put out a request for qualifications. We received 3 proposals for sets of qualifications from engineering firms, and while all 3 had merits, staff recommends MRB Group be selected to do this work. And you have been provided an updated resolution with that recommendation.
Council, any questions for Megan regarding this is a act resolution, so I'll take a motion.
Move to approve.
City Secretary.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Lloyd.
Aye.
Councilmember Robinson. Councilmember Zarate. Councilmember Jolly.
Okay, next item on the agenda, hold a public hearing, first reading of an ordinance and deliberate on a voluntary annexation request to institute annexation proceedings to enlarge and extend, including zoning designation, all that certain lot, tract, or parcel of land being 49.57 acres situated in the FM Wright survey. Abstract number 964, Hill County, Texas, being a portion of a certain tract of land described as 128.18 acres and recorded in volume 306, page 258 of the official public records of Hill County, Texas. Richard?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is the location of the proposed annexation. This is also the same area that you all considered during the consent agenda for the Somerset Edition Phase 1 development. This annexation is 49.57 acres, and the first phase of that subdivision plat is a portion of that, 33 acres. This map shows the 200-foot notification area. We only had one response from that notification area to this one, and that was for clarification purposes. Nothing strong one way or another from that individual. This map shows the zoning in the surrounding area. You see it's adjacent to SF7 zoning, just to the south of the intermediate school. This map here shows the future land use map of recommending single-family residential uses. The Planning and Zoning Commission looked at this request on Monday, June 10th, and they forwarded their recommendation of annexation and applying single-family residential SF7 zoning with the increased density single-family residential overlay to this property.
Thanks, Richard. Any questions
It would not absorb, you're referring to the Mormon church? It would not.
Okay, any questions? This is a public hearing, we'll open it up to anyone in the audience that would like to address this specific agenda item. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and move to the next agenda. Hold a public hearing, first reading, and deliberate on an ordinance accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission to amend the terms of the 2007 zoning ordinance, known as Ordinance O 2007-01-01, whereby the purpose is to amend Section 5.33, sign and regulations by incorporating LED signs into the schedule for permanent signage and defining LED signs.
So presently, our sign regulations do not address LED signage. So this proposed ordinance would incorporate LED signs into the schedule for permanent signage within those regulations. It would also define what an LED sign is. So there's a couple of areas where LED signs would be incorporated into that schedule. Under off-premise pole, pylon signs, or billboards, it would allow LED signs. So simply there would just include, under the requirements saying this includes LED signs. And then it would add a category for LED signs on that schedule. And it would subject those LED signs to the maximum area, height, number of signs, to the type of sign it's located on. And then also under those requirements, it would include language saying messages must be displayed for at least 8 seconds. A change of message must be accomplished within 2 seconds and must occur simultaneously on the entire sign face. That language is straight from TxDOT requirements. And then also we'll define LED signs as a sign that uses an array of light-emitting elements to create images or words that are intended to be legible to passing motorists. An LED sign is generally located on another type of sign, pole, pylon signs, monument signs, wall signs, etc. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this ordinance at their meeting on June 10th, and they forwarded the recommendation for approval.
Council, any questions for Mr. Reinhardt regarding the LED sign?
Richard, is there anything in TxDOT or any other municipality that put a cap on lumens, actual brightness of the signs?
That's a good question. I'm not familiar enough with TxDOT regulations to be able to answer that question. I can get back with an answer on that in time for the second reading.
Kind of curious, I mean, some of those signs on a dark night, they're blinding. I'm just curious if there's any municipality that regulates the brightness of those signs.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I can see if I can find an answer on that in time for second reading.
Any other council questions? This is a public hearing. We'll open up the first reading to anyone in the audience that would like to ask any questions regarding this specific agenda item. Hearing none, we'll close the first reading and move to the next agenda item. Hold a public hearing, first reading, and deliberate on an ordinance accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission to amend the terms of the 2007 zoning ordinance, known as Ordinance O 2007-01-01, whereby the purpose is to amend Section 4.30B.6 by establishing sign regulations for the OMR, Outlet Mall Redevelopment Overlay District.
So presently, as the OMR district regulations were designed, it simply just refers sign regulations to the underlying zoning district. This would add a couple of points to those sign regulations for the OMR, the Outlet Mall Redevelopment Overlay So presently, the only off-premise signs that are permitted within the city are billboards along I-35. This would include a point that would allow businesses within the outlet mall outlet mall redevelopment overlay district to have the option of co-locating on a pole sign. The second bullet up there, you see off-premise signs are permitted for businesses within the overlay to share the same pole, pylon, or monument sign with separate sign cabinets for each business. So that's where you would get that language, and it would be in an effort to give the possibility to limit the number of signs, although it wouldn't require those businesses to share a pole sign. It would just give them the option to do so. And then another regulation that would be proposed by this ordinance is businesses opting to locate on an off-premise sign, pole, or monument are not allowed a separate on-premise sign of the same category pole or monument. So a business wouldn't be able to have 2 pole signs or 2 monument signs. They would only be able to have 1. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this proposed ordinance at their meeting on June 10th, and they forwarded their recommendation for approval.
Thank you, Richard. Council, any questions for Mr. Ryan regarding that sign? This is a public hearing. It does require a first reading. Open it up to anyone in the audience that would like to address this specific agenda item. Hearing none, we'll close the first hearing and move on to hear and deliberate on the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I think everybody here's heard this spiel. This is the second meeting of the month, so we're doing the second half of our strategic goals 5 through 8. Goal 5, build better infrastructure. Hallelujah, it hasn't rained in a few days. So we are finally able to make a little bit of progress over on Walnut. You know, it's a mixed bag because the street is now passable, but we've ripped out the driveways. So the same residents that were stranded before are still stranded. They're just stranded for different reasons. But it's important that we're keeping traffic off of that road right now because with all of the rain, I mean, generally speaking, when the line goes into the subgrade, you're pretty much safe. Unless it rains a whole bunch every 3 days or so for 6 weeks. And you have heavy equipment, not only from the street crew, but from the houses that are being constructed further down the street, coming over it and over it and over again with vehicles and trailers and equipment. So we have asked that they redo the line and the subgrade in that section and make sure that it cures out nicely. And I think we're going to be glad later on that we went back and redid it. But it is, of course, a horrible pain and right for the same folks that have been dealing with this inconvenience for a long time already. Let me back up. Park Drive, we're so almost done, but there are 7 driveways where the slope of the driveway is pretty significant. So in a couple of them, they're having to go back further into the property, into private property, as opposed to being able to hit all that slope just within our right of way. So we need letters from those property owners giving us permission to work on their property. That's being done. Also, because the road is now lower and the slope of the driveway to get there is lower, they are also lower than the surrounding sidewalks. And so we had a whole back and forth about, well, the sidewalks are not great. Do we really want to spend extra money to tie into these not great sidewalks? And so that was a bit of back and forth with the contractor and the engineer. Ultimately, we walked it and felt like they may not be great, but they're still worth having. And therefore, we are going to, it means we're going to have to go out a little bit wider on each of those driveways. Same thing, you got to go out wider so that that slope is gentle enough to meet ADA requirements. So all of that has been done. For the driveways and the sidewalks, that means the engineer now needs to get updated plan sheets to the contractor. We expect that to happen quickly. and then they'll be doing that work. The other thing that needs to happen on Park is that there are two intersections, Park and Ivy and Park and Thompson. Park and Thompson slightly less so, but Ivy is the low point in all of these streets, and so there's a ton of stormwater underneath it. You can't do much to improve that intersection without hitting the top of that box. So they've kind of gone back and forth because again, if they don't get the slope right, then water's gonna sit on top of that street and we're gonna be back in this mess in a few years. So they've gone back and forth, the sheets have been given to the contractor is working through to make sure all of that is workable. Once they have agreement on what's gonna be done there, then they'll be setting that up, a little bit of concrete work and then paving. The reason that's significant is that Old Brandon Road and those intersections will be paved at the same time, so that the paving contractor only has to mobilize once. So what's happening this week is that is being set up, and the base repair is happening out on Old Brandon Road. We went back and forth about that. The initial base that was specified, they're a little bit concerned about its ability to stand up to all of the wet weather that we've been having. So they have specified a stouter set of materials, more cementitious. So that's going to be going in over, starting this week, and they're hoping to finish it pretty quickly. Hopefully it'll be done next week. And between that and those intersections, be paving pretty soon, but they did not want to give me a specific week that they think the paving is going to happen. But we're all looking forward to it. On Church, still just tons and tons of utility work. Water lines, sewer lines, storm. Currently, Altex is waiting for Holy. Holy is doing the storm. Altex is waiting on Holy. Holy is waiting on Atlas. Atlas, despite having been notified of this project well in advance, still installed their, went in and put lines in there, now they have to be moved. So we're waiting for them to do their stuff. They're not in too much of a hurry. But that's where that is. Obviously, the street work will not begin until all of the utility work is finished, and we'll just keep you updated on that. Good news on the water tower, we have a meeting next week to start the pump station. So I guess that's just observing to make sure everything is functional. Doesn't mean the project is done, but it is a milestone that we're all very happy about. I'm hoping we'll get Art back from retirement to go and just observe. Getting closer to that. Goal 6, deliver essential services. As you know, we've raised water rates, so notices are going out to people about that. There's been a ton of great coverage in the newspaper, thank you. We've tried to be as clear about it on social media as possible. There's stuff in the newsletter that goes out with the water bill, and we've started sending letters out. The first letter went to residences that have large water meters. So if you have a 1.5 or 2 inch water meter for a single family residence, those folks are going to get a real shock when they get their bill. So we sent them a letter explaining that and what they can do, who to call, and all that kind of stuff. Additional letters will be going out for folks with sprinkler systems, and then to commercial users. Single family water users with a 3/4 inch meter, I think everybody knows the rates are going up. Those rates are not increasing all that much. At the lowest level, we're talking about less than $10. So we don't necessarily think we need to send something to every 3/4 inch meter user, but the commercial folks probably need a heads up. So that's what we're working on this week. As Armin noted, we have applied for funding from Texas Water Development Board. We have no idea what we'll get, if anything, waiting for that. And we are continuing to collect costs for the receivers to collect the information from our automatic water meters. In addition, we're going to be looking at locations for valves so that when we are able to isolate what section is leaking, we'll be able to kind of carve out that section so that we don't have to take the entire tower down. which will both save us water, but it will also spare a bunch of these Real Housewives West of Joe who continue to get their service interrupted. Upcoming, we talked about the 10-inch water line. Appreciate y'all's action on that. There will be a future look at, if we are at some point looking at the need for an additional elevated storage, how's that cost going to be shared on future development? Nothing that's on the books now, but in future phases, we're going to have to figure out how to meet those needs. There is a road extension contemplated at the industrial park for a prospect out there. We have completed that request for qualifications, and we will have a recommendation for council on the 2nd of July at that council meeting. In addition, and we've talked about this the last couple of meetings, we have a request for qualifications out for a study of our wastewater system. That is really important because, again, with the rain, we've had a couple of areas in town where we've had service interruption, and that's just not okay. So we'll be evaluating those qualifications, and we'll have those recommendations for you on July 2nd as well. Goal number 7, boost economic development. Economic development team, Jessica True has come in and has not missed a beat. She's assisting Project Go with the work that they're continuing to do, and that's continuing to move forward, albeit kind of slowly. We have 2 requests for information from the governor's office. We had 1 site visit from a company out of Los Angeles. We're one of 8 sites being considered for that project, and then there's another one that we've just submitted on, and we'll be finding out further from the company whether we made the short list on that one. Talked about the prospect out of the industrial park. We're going to be considering that extension. And then, of course, we continue to work with Retail Coach on retail prospects for various locations throughout the city. Downtown, we're happy to report a new business opening in Wally and Lynn's Boutique. And there are 2 additional prospects looking at space downtown. Looking at the outlet mall, we had been talking about doing that first phase of demolition as early as June. That's been pushed back. Foster Conquer is here with Rosa Retail, Foster. They have got 7 pad sites identified with 6 businesses and 1 gas station. 3 of those are still working towards commitments. And then the existing tenants, we're continuing to work with those on potential long-term locations. Enhanced quality of life, Parks and Rec. We had a really good meeting. There are a lot of things that need to be done out at Wallace Park. That is one of the most used facilities in the city. We have just hundreds and hundreds of people out there all the time, especially in the summer. And the facilities are not great. So we've had a few conversations with folks about ways that we could sort of level up before we do anything specific. We really felt like it was important to get some engineering. And so we met with an architect from NRB Group with a specialty in park design. She's recommended a master plan. And the reason that that's important, I know it sounds like planning on top of planning, but a lot of that area floods. And so before we invest more money into the current configuration, I think the questions that we need to be asking are, where can we put money that's not going to flood? What are the improvements that we need to put in place? Do we need to do drainage work? Do we need to reconfigure where things are located? We need to kind of stop and get a game plan together. And then every incremental new thing that we do is in the service of that big long-term vision. We're not doing a one-off that then 5 years from now we have to undo because it's in the wrong place. There is grant funding available through Texas Parks and Wildlife. There are a couple of different programs. That funding comes up again every year. So I don't think we'll be in time with a solid plan to apply for funds this late summer, early fall, but we will be ready for next year. Library, we are continuing to work with the architects to right-size those expansion plans and getting some cost estimates from contractors for the plumbing repairs that are required. Programming, tons of attendance on summer reading, lots of cool stuff happening. Justin is here and will give us an update probably at the end of the summer on sort of cumulative activities, but lots of fun. And we do have our new youth services library in place. Hillsborough and the Hill County Farm Stall Market and Trade Days are happening. The Farm Stall Market, first and third Saturdays, and the Trade Days, the second Saturdays every month. Staff updates, we did some DISC training, which is a personality assessment, how that plays out in the workforce for managers and supervisors. We're going to be taking that through additional levels of conversation and working through how that impacts our team relationships and dynamics, and then planning additional training for additional employees. City offices will be closed tomorrow for the Juneteenth holiday. Bonds Alley was held by the Hillsborough Arts League. This is the second year that entity has taken over the running of the Arts Festival. They did a great job. It was well attended, got great reports on the concert and the event itself. And there continue to be weekly concerts held by the Hillsborough Chamber Wranglers in the Yard, the new owners of what used to be the Truck Yard. And there's a big group from Dallas coming in this Saturday that everybody's really excited about. So that's fun. The Lake Bloomers 4th of July Parade is scheduled, as it always is, on July 4th. And then our next big downtown event that the city plans will be Autumn Fest in September. Any questions for me on any of the foregoing?
Thank you, Mr. Sutton, the south side, the chief command, Leslie.
I'm sorry, I did. It's there. I just skipped right over all of that programming. I'm so sorry. There were some 250 people at Sesquicentennial Park for Fun in the Park, which is one of the, there's Fun in the Park at Sesquicentennial Park and Carter Davis Park every summer. So this was the big one at Southside. Attendance was high, pictures were great, it looked like people really showed up and had a great time. And then we had about 50 people at the movie show in the city park on Saturday night.
All right, council, any more questions for me? I have a question. I noticed on Orlando Road, because I drive a lot of time, they've already had a failed slot on the road. What would be the plan on something like that?
They're going to go out and fix it. And that's part of the conversation around whether that base mix is stout enough to stand up to the conditions that we have. So that's caused the kind of re-engineering and let's go back and redo this and get it right.
Down in the, where the Hillsborough now, there's another tobacco shop.
So it is not a tobacco shop.
What is it, a vape?
It is a CBD shop.
Okay.
And so it does not meet the definition of smoke shop that is in our ordinance and is limited. It also had been in the works prior, so it went ahead and went through.
So we'll start with vape shops, is that what we're doing?
Well, the definition of smoke shop includes vape shops, but it specifically says tobacco. So we may need to go back and review it and broaden the definition, but that store committed to not having any tobacco products at all. And so it therefore does not meet the definition of, because it's all under tobacco.